There are those that just want to be left alone, and those that just won't leave them alone. Which one are you? The Ernest Hancock Show.
Welcome back to Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, my special guest, Adrienne Pine, Assistant Professor of Anthropology at American University, specializing in Latin America, where she's got plenty to specialize in. I mean, dang it, if we got a tapestry of all kinds of the effect of us just, messing with everything. Just messing, ew. And we have WikiLeaks to thank for getting all of this out. We have yet to scratch the surface on this. But, let's do some comparisons here. If we look at America, we got our own WikiLeaks kind of stuff going on. I'm sure we do. It's called, daily news. It's called the internet. It's called whatever. And we live it in our own lives. And we're coming across, even though we're maybe higher on the standard of living thing, I tell you what, the difference now is we got 46 million people on food stamps. You start cutting benefits like they did here in Arizona just a couple weeks ago, 158,000 people, unemployment benefits went away. Ooh, they're going to start getting hungry. And then what happens? Well, I don't know. We can ask Adrienne what happens, man. She knows what happens in Latin America, and people go hungry, bow, bow, bow. And I'll tell you, what we're going to be looking at here in America is the same kind of thing. We're already starting to see it. Now, we see like states like Wyoming and Montana and Arizona starting to, say, Washington, we don't care what y'all say. And we're going to have federal agents come here trying to enforce unconstitutional laws we don't like. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to arrest them. Then it's going to be go head to head with some federal agent. There's going to be some local state sheriff guy and he's going to be supported by the people, and you could see how it could happen. You have state secession talk has already started. Heck, Texas can vote themselves free whenever they want anyway. Well, according to them, when they came into the Republic. But they go, nope, we decided that. It was called Grant versus Lee. So now we have a lot of parallels that we can, kind of look to here in America that would, in the United States of America, that would mirror actions that have happened already and are ongoing in Latin America. Are there any similarities that you see, Adrienne, some things that you would think that, we should look to as kind of a parallel, or things that you hear about in the news and what states' rights things and arguments are being made and Tea Party and all that kind of stuff that you start going, yeah, this is kind of what I saw happen years ago in fill-in-the-blank Latin American country?
Well, I think there are a lot of different movements right now in the United States, and they're responding even as disparate as they are. Whether you're talking about anarchist movements or the Tea Party movement, or or a whole variety. I think there is common ground, and there is a common enemy, and that enemy is the corporations and the government that they control that is preventing us from being able to exercise self-governance, to be able to determine what kind of life that we want to have in this country. And most importantly, it's preventing us from taking care of each other as human beings in this society, because we don't have those resources, because those resources have been taken from us. And, I think it is a profound question. How are we going to take care of each other? Does that mean that, that I share a little bit of what I have with somebody who I see who is suffering unjustly? That may
absolutely,
be the case.
Absolutely, but not coercively.
Right, and the thing is that we're being coerced and we don't even recognize it, and and we tend to scapegoat the people who are most victimized in this society for that coercion. People who are on welfare, or people who are receiving some form of food assistance, when in fact the vast bulk of that assistance is going to the wealthiest people in society. And I think that that's where we really need to keep our focus, to prevent all of our tax dollars to go from going to bailing out banks. And then when we'll have that vast amount of money, decide what we want to do with it. Do we want to use that to make life less miserable for all the people who have had their resources stolen, or do we want to retain that on an individual level and leave some people out to dry? I mean, that's a larger conversation. But I think that the first thing we can agree on is that we need to make sure that that money isn't concentrated in the hands of a very, very few people. Corporations.
I want it concentrated in my pocket. I want, I remember it was a campaign, it was 1996, and it was the Libertarian was running against the state, state chair of the Democratic Party here, Steve Owens, was running against J.D. Hayworth. I'm sure you know J.D. And he was the Republican. And they're going back and forth on how they're going to save Social Security. And the Libertarian, they're talking about, we need to build a firewall around Social Security so that they can't spend it, which, of course, it's all gone. Because it was there, so they spent it. And he goes, can I create a firewall around my wallet? I was just wondering, can I protect myself from you taking my stuff? And whatever the heck it is you want to do with it, stop taking it. And I want you to understand, from a libertarian perspective, we are very, very compassionate to, I would say, people in need. My family is brought up that way. We are our own family, people, our extended family, and so on. It's just that the government is taking away our means to be compassionate. And they will use a gun at my forehead. They will take the money, and they redistribute it, of course, amongst them first, under the promise that they're going to do something they never do anyway. And the vast majority is, as you say, they're off bombing and killing people in other countries, and then they're giving it to themselves when they make bad decisions or whatever decision they made so they can justify too big to fail or whatever. So I think we're on the same wavelength. We are compassionate, but not by edict, not by coercion, not by a policy, not by a promise of taking it from me and then they're going to promise to do something good with it. I am of the opinion, you want a compassionate people, you have a compassionate, rights-respecting government, and we haven't had that for my entire life. So I'm looking at, do we have examples in Latin America of two things? One, do we have examples that they've gone through this cycle, and they come out the other side and said, yeah, you know what? We don't need all this coercion. Or we have ones that from the WikiLeaks cables and so on, they're starting to come, and it's bolstering the argument from some people that would be making this argument, like the Zapatistas and so on. So I'm going, all right, give me an example of, you can talk about Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. He came in and said, we're casting out somebody and replacing it with something. What was that all about?
Well, I mean, Hugo Chavez is a politician who's immensely popular in both polls and in the fact that he's got overwhelming support when the U.S. illegally engineered a coup against him in 2002. That was Otto Reich, one of the most anti-democratic actors, imperialist actors in Latin America over the past 3 decades, who was the Assistant Secretary of State at that time and engineered a coup against Hugo Chavez. And, so I think what's important with Hugo Chavez and other kind of left leaders in Latin America is not them as individuals or as figures, but the fact that their presence is the result of massive social movements that are against U.S. imperialism, that are against the concentration of wealth. And those individuals, because they get planted in a state structure that has all of those anti-democratic institutions, never live up to the promise of the movements that got them there in the first place. But they are a step in the right direction, I think, in many cases. And in some cases, governments that have not at all lived up to the movements that have put them in power have been overthrown by those movements because they're not fulfilling their duties. And so I think the next step is really reform. One step is bringing in leaders who are more willing to respond to the demands, and not just requests, but demands of the people in various movements. But another perhaps more important step is the kind of process that's being followed by the Zapatistas, for example, which is to reject that model altogether, or to completely change the model of government that exists so that it actually doesn't just respond to the people, but is of the people.
The people. The people get to rule themselves. I rule what's underneath this hat. It's me. Me. It's all about me and my ability to take care of others should I choose. If you do not have a moral people, you will not have a moral government. And if you got a government, you're not going to have a moral people sooner or later. That's just how it works out. Because it's always a collectivization of goodies. Your goodies. Let me get your goodies, and I'm going to do what I want with my goodies. Your goodies to be my goodies and give to my friends. Well, we're on the same page. We're just coming at it a different way. We're going to get social justice because the individual will eventually continue and always demand it. And it takes information from people like Adrian Pine to be able to help us wade through all this information that we get from places like WikiLeaks. Adrian, thanks. We'll see you tomorrow.